Good morning. How lovely to be with Christian brothers and sisters who care for people in different continents, who are echoing what Martin Luther King says, any injustice anywhere is a fringe on justice everywhere. I appreciate the invitation to this meeting, to this conference, Walking with Palestinian Christians. I'm also shivering with hope. You are telling us that we are not alone, and it's a very important message. I will talk about the situation as it is there and try to provide some time later on at the end for questions. But let me start with a joke, because jokes are part of the nonviolent struggle that we are interested in. You know Mr. Kissinger. Who doesn't know Mr. Kissinger? Was appointed to be the president of the Biblical Zoo in Jerusalem. And, while what is happening in Gaza, the inauguration happened in Jerusalem. So the journalists, many rushed to interview him to see what are the achievements. Especially, he was very involved in the Middle East. And one journalist, after touring inside the zoo, came to Kissinger with a question after seeing the lion and the lamb lying together. And he asked him, Mr. Kissinger, how did you make the lion and the lamb lying together? And Mr. Kissinger replied, every day a new lamb. You know, Palestinians are not allowed to travel through Tel Aviv, and even not to go to Jerusalem to get their visas. And anyhow, an Israeli and Palestinian moved to Jordan to travel together to come to such a conference. While they are on the airplane, the Palestinian wanted badly to go to the toilet. Got up, walked towards the WC, and he's so occupied, and he said, Israeli inside. I don't know, what shall I talk more? This is in a way resembles what we are living in and where we are. I remember reading for Bishop Kamara. He said, when I feed the poor, they call me saint. And when I ask why the poor is poor, they call me communist. My name is Zogby. You can call me either name. So we are talking about occupation. Occupation is evil. And it doesn't only demoralizes Palestinians, but demoralizes Israelis too. And as a Palestinian living in the West Bank, looking what is happening, not only in the West Bank and being part of the people there, but also what happened in Gaza, which is full of wounds, and it is all of our wounds. The impact of the occupation there, and I call it occupation, an attack, and not a war. When a small strip received 12,000 tons of bombs there on 360 kilometers, could you imagine what is life there? Especially 2/3 of the population in Gaza are refugees, living in very densely populated refugees. And 1/3 of that area is demilitarized in a way or another, or no one is living there, not demilitarized, not allowed to use the land for housing or for agriculture. The largest portion of the victims have been children. Out of the 1,875 people killed, 430 child was killed. Children, besides the malnutrition and leukemia, They have different traumas. And to put you into context, when the conflict escalated and the attack on Gaza started, people usually go to buy goods. They don't know how long it will be. So I was in a store. While I am talking with the storekeeper, a child 6 years old rushed quickly into the store with panic, wetting his pants there. And the storekeeper said, "What is going on? Why you are doing that?" He said, "There is a drone in the sky, and I'm afraid that they will shell us." Imagine that guy is living in the West Bank. What happened to the children of Gaza who received a lot of shelling from the sea, from the land, and from the sky? 7,800 persons were wounded. Almost 1/3 of them are children. You know, statistics vary from place to place, but this is where I found more related issue. 1/4 of the people in Gaza are displaced. Could you imagine how many times they have been displaced without water, without electricity? The electrical department plant was destroyed. And when we talk about people who are killed or wounded, we are not talking about numbers. We are talking about people with names, as you saw earlier, people with families. And you know, Palestinians are a community-based society, and the family is a viable socio-economic unit. 70 families, in a way or another, killed. At least 3 of the same family has been killed, and some families have 20 or 24. Could you imagine when you have 70 family members are no longer living? The total community is not only at shock, but there is no single family who is not impacted by the situation. Yes, when we talk about family, we talk about the around 32,000 homes destroyed. I have a friend, many friends in Gaza. I called and he told me, you know, Jesus himself took refuge in Egypt. The angels helped him and guided the family to go and came back. But we as a family were kicked out in 1948 and we moved to Gaza. In 1967, the occupation happened. And from time to time, the Israeli attacked us. Several times we moved houses, demolished. And now, you know, our home was hit. I moved to the hospital to volunteer. The hospital was hit. I moved to the church with others. The church was hit. Please, could you tell the world, we need a safe place, we need a safe haven. Could you imagine there is no safe haven for such families? And of course, when we talk about places of worship were really also destroyed, or some of them partially damaged, mosques and churches. Economically, Gaza is devastated. Before this attack, the GNP per capita in Gaza was $1,000. Of course, Israel has $28,000. Nowadays, you could imagine what life is there. So, you heard the news, and you listened to the news. And many times in the mass media, they say the Palestinians put their children as cannon fodder. They put them in the place where Hamas is hiding their weapons. And they say Israel has never attacked civilians. I don't know how long they can tell such a situation. There is an article in Haaretz for Chris Hedges. It says, "Why Israel Lies." And I really advise you to read it and see what is written there as a person who has been involved in the Middle East. And in a way or another, he said governments lies, including Hamas and Israel. But the issue is not Hamas. Israel is against the Palestinian people. And especially as Palestinians, we had a unity government, and we thought we'll go for elections. And of course, the peace process will restart again. There will be a jump start and move. And Hamas agreed on that. So part of this attack on Gaza is, again, to further divide the Palestinians. They started in the West Bank with the story of the 3 disappearing children. And up till this moment, we are not sure what happened to them. And by the way, we are against any types of violence, no matter against whom, because I believe all of us are created in the image of God, and every human life is holy and valuable. And any loss of any human life is a loss for humanity. They started in Gaza, searching home to home, house to house, a cave, everywhere. And then after they, moved all over the West Bank, the Israelis started with such an attack. Gideon Levy is one of the also prophetic voice in Israel. He said it is not a war, it is a genocide. It is a massacre. And other article, he criticized the pilots, say, where is your conscience? You don't have children. What are you doing? So there are some Israeli writers who really describes the situation as it is without, selling propaganda of the government. Another point I would like to mention, that Israel is waging that war, saying that it is self-defense. And of course, I don't believe that military solution is the solution. There will be no military solution. And instead of having dialogue of arms, we need arms of dialogue. We need, and the Israeli government should really understand that. There is no way that the Palestinians will disappear. No way that the Palestinians will stop resisting the occupation. And I am for popular resistance, nonviolent resistance. Will they listen? And the problem is, the Prime Minister of Israel at this moment thinks might makes it right. And we need the world to really waken him up, because any political settlement is not only good for Palestinians, but it will be good for Israelis. Israel is always talking about exclusive security. And many times they justify anything for the Palestinians under the pretext of security. Security becomes a golden calf for Israel. Family reunification is revoked because of security. People couldn't go to Jerusalem for hospitals or for worship because of security. And this is a very important element. How can we exert pressure on Israel to see it in a different way? And Israel is using military as well diplomacy for delaying the inevitable. Military and diplomacy are two faces of one coin, And the whole purpose is to delay the inevitable. There is inevitability that Palestinians and Israelis should live together, no matter whether in two-state or one-state solution. But with such attacks, delaying the inevitable, and it goes on the war of denial, to deny the Palestinians' rights to self-determination and statehood. And I believe the Palestinians want to live in safe areas, to have home, to have a safe haven, to live side by side. And that's why the endeavors for uniting the Palestinians and to talk as one body with the Israelis under international umbrella is the desire of every Palestinian. One thing, since I am here in the States, I believe, I don't know, really to come here, listen to your prophetic voice and prophetic action lifts up my spirit. The question is how we can influence the governments who still support Israel. United States, $3 billion every year. United Kingdom has been licensed to sell 8 billion pounds worth of military or dual-use equipment lately, since 2010, and 42 million for the drones and the tanks that has been used on that war against Gaza. And on top of that, Germany sold submarines. And according to the German law, no selling of weapons for any area that has conflict. This is a big challenge for us and for all those who are good-hearted people who would like to see justice and work for common good. We can continue to talk about that more and more. At the same time, where we are standing. I like to end my talk with these verses from the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 8 to 10. Says, "We are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Always carrying about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus Christ, that the life of Jesus also may be manifested in our body." This is where we are having our hope. Injustice will not last forever. And when I'm talking about justice, I'm not talking about punitive justice. I'm talking about restorative justice that redresses the wrongs rather than avenging it. Therefore, we need to have a jump start for the peace process. And I think we as Palestinians are asking the world for international protection at this moment. We need international protection from the occupation. And this is very crucial need, and it's needed nowadays than before. And any visit to Gaza now, we will be all shocked to see the destruction and how many people are dying slowly. And of course, the essential of a good arbitrator is needed. And that's why many times we focus on the quartet to resolve the conflict. The UN, the US, EU, and Russia. And let me conclude with a story to illustrate our stand for justice, which is based on win-win and not zero-sum. There are 3 members of the family living together. The son, who is married with his wife, of course, living with his mother in the same house. And the three have been praying for ages. Each one has a need. The mother is blind, and she needs to have her eyes recovered, her sight recovered. The wife would like to have a baby. Will be the future for her and for the whole family. The husband would like to have a better job, especially after he was kicked from Jerusalem, no permit to work there. At the end, God sent the genie or the angel for the son and tell him that God is ready to respond to one need, not to three. Too much for a Palestinian to have three needs in one time. So anyhow, he gathered, including him, together in a small, cozy room, thinking that this coziness will help them to have a process of uniting their need. But you know, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have fist fighting. Sometimes this historic conflict is worse than the Israeli conflict. So, and then one Methodist was passing by. And, you know, invited to the scene, and guess what did he advise the son? You know, we are patriarchal society, you need to talk to the man. He said to him, please ask God that your mother will be able to see her grandson having enough honey and milk on the table. By such responding to the needs for all people, and here could be Christian, Muslim, Jew, and could be two societies, will be able to move from the deadlock to a better look. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zogby. I'd like to now bring up our second guest today. And I am privileged to have had a chance to spend time in Israel, Palestine with this fine gentleman a year ago last April. Wissam Salsa is a master carver and the co-owner of a family-owned business. He is also an experienced tour guide within Palestine, using his extensive knowledge and firsthand experience to educate visitors on the land's history, geography, and political, ethnic, and religious context. He and his wife and 3 young children live in, how do you pronounce it? Beit Sahur, which is just east of Bethlehem. And by the way, you'll have a chance to see some of Wissam's art in the youth building today as you eat lunch. But anyway, please join me in welcoming Wissam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Wissam Salsa. I come from a little town called Beit Sahur. It's nearby Bethlehem. As Karen said, I'm a tour guide. I'm a Palestinian tour guide, and I'm one of 42 Palestinian guides who have the permit to travel through all the land and to take groups all over. So I'm blessed, I'm lucky to have such a permit. Even there are lots of other Palestinian guides who cannot travel freely. Of course, on the other side, on the Israeli side, there are over 15,000 guides who can move freely everywhere. Coming to the United States, I was thinking what I have to talk about. And I decided that I don't want to talk politics in here, and I don't want to go with lots of stories, because you hear lots of stories everywhere on the media, on the net. And I decided that I want to just tell you how it is just to live in Palestine, to be a tour guide or to be a laborer trying to get to your job in the morning in Jerusalem, or even to go to your job in Ramallah or somewhere out of town. I don't know how much you know about Bethlehem, but when we talk about Bethlehem, we talk about an open-air prison. We talk about like an area, a town, a city that is completely surrounded by a concrete wall, fence, and illegal settlements, bypass roads that we cannot cross to the other side without passing through a checkpoint. This is how Bethlehem looks like. as my friend Zubi described, that everything is justified on the name of security. And even the war of Gaza is justified on the name of security. And security in our land, where we live, is a mystery. And I never understood what security means to the state of Israel. A long time ago, I was involved in Palestinian-Israeli dialogue, and I remember that day very well when we were sitting in a session and a Palestinian asked an Israeli, "Do you think if you get rid of all of the Palestinians, will that bring security for the state of Israel?" He said, "No, because of the Arabs." He asked him the question, "So do you think now that if you get rid of all of the Palestinians and the Arabs, will that bring the security for the state of Israel?" He said, "No, because of Iran," and so on and so on. The ugly wall that was built around Bethlehem in 2000, not only around Bethlehem, it's around all of the cities in the West Bank, is also called a security fence. Even we know that walls will never bring security for any nation. Just want to tell you a short story about security, and it's also related to my town. My town is called Beit Sahur, and the people of my town were kind of a leader of nonviolent resistance, like in the last 20 years. In 1989, the people of my town decided not to pay taxes for the Israeli occupation, because occupation is an evil. Occupation is a daily violation of human rights. Violation is hustle and harassment every day. So they decided not to pay taxes for the Israeli occupation. And just to make kind of story, to get attraction for that story, they used the slogan, "No taxation without representation." It was another positive party that's in my town. So that day, Israel imposed curfew on the town. It was for 40 days or 42 days. And when we say curfew, it's not like your curfew. Curfew there is 24 hours lockdown, and they let you out of your home. It's like you're under home arrest, like whole community is under home arrest for 24 hours. And like they let you out a couple of hours every week to go out and find, like to buy food and then get back to your home. Tax collectors supported by army went from a house to another, asking people to pay taxes. People refused, rejected to pay taxes, said, "We don't have money." The result was they confiscated everything from all families, including cars, furniture, tools, machines, everything. And many people were taken to prison for that. Anyway, before that started, my community brought 7 cows to the town for milk. We don't have farms, we don't have cows there. So they brought cows to town for milk, and I'm one of the young guys at the time. We used to go to that little farm, get milk in bottles, and take them to families in need. Like sneak through curfew. It was very dangerous. And after they confiscated everything from town, they released curfew, and then a few days later, the Israeli army came to town looking for the cows. When they found the cows, they arrested them. And when they were asked through our Jewish lawyer friends, "Why did you arrest the cows?" Their official answer was, "For security reasons." So we called these cows the terrorist cows. And this explains the story of security. So anyway, I have to go through I have to start my work. Okay, when I work as a guide, when my group stays in Jerusalem, or again, as for any other labor or worker that works in Jerusalem or even in Israel, has to go through a checkpoint every morning. I have to start planning a day, like a night before, this headache, set up my alarm at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then 4 o'clock because I need at least an hour and a half just to wake up, and then go to the checkpoint. Okay, before I wake, like when the alarm rings, I say a prayer. My prayer says every morning, Lord, please, let me not get disappointed and open the tap of water and find water in it so I wash my face and brush my teeth and maybe take a shower. Because water is a big issue in Bethlehem. We get water once every 2 weeks, or just like one day every 2 weeks, and sometimes for a month. I mean, those who come from Bethlehem know, or been to Bethlehem, they know that sometimes people go to streets and burn like tires to seek for water. People don't have water. So this is the first prayer that I say. And then, of course, I have to go to the checkpoint, just check it out, like YouTube, Bethlehem checkpoint. And I give always 2 hours just to cross the checkpoint. I have to stand in line, and of course, 2 hours I have to pray. So this is another privilege of being Palestinians. We pray a lot. And of course, I have to think what I have to tell my bus captain, my group, if I'm late, and started to plan to take a taxi. And then, you know, I'm happy when I pass the checkpoint. Now, by the way, we Palestinians feel happy a lot. We feel happy when we wake up in the morning and we find water in the house. We feel happy when, like, we cross a checkpoint and, like, we're not late to our work. We feel happy, if we get a permit to go to Jerusalem. I don't know if you, most of the people of Bethlehem cannot even go to Jerusalem, which is 4 miles from where we live. We feel happy if I get in a taxi, just a regular taxi, I stop a taxi in Jerusalem in the street, and the taxi driver does not ask me to show him my permit. Because, you know what? Even Palestinian taxi drivers in Jerusalem ask me to show them a permit, because there is a law that if a taxi driver carries a Palestinian that does not have a permit, this person will go to prison. So, like, taxi drivers become like police for... Okay, so we Palestinians have to think about micro details in life, things that you may not think of. Can't tell you how tiring this could be. You have to worry about everything. You have to worry about your children even while they are asleep. Even talking about Gaza, just a few days ago, a rocket by mistake came to our town. It was just like very close to where I live. I mean, of course, there are lots of other stories. And many times I wonder why it's like this. I mean, as a Palestinian, why I have to live this life? Okay, I'm not an immigrant there. If you ask a little boy in my town, what is your name? This little boy could name 5 or 6 names after his name. Like, he will name 6 or 7 or 8 names for his grandfathers. Okay? We lived there for hundreds of years. Now, I see it like this. My fault, or the problem is that I'm a Christian, or let me put it in a different way, and I'm sorry to say it like this, but I'm not a Jew. You know, while our neighbors that live in illegal settlements, and lots of them, they were not even born in Bethlehem, can travel freely. They have water 24 hours. They have nice neighborhoods. They even have special roads that we cannot drive on. Like, there are roads in Bethlehem that me, as Palestinian, once I've heard Bishop Elias Shakur saying, the children of the lesser God cannot drive on. So again, this is simply because I was born as a Christian, and I don't know who to blame on this situation. Okay, I'm here not to talk politics, as I said. I'm here not to encourage you to hate my oppressors, because we don't need more enemies against each other. I think we have enough hostility in our hearts that we don't need to create more enemies to each other. But I'm here to tell you that please be the voice for those who cannot speak. Be the eyes for those who cannot see. To tell people that we Palestinians are humans too. We have families, we have children, we love to live, we want to live, and we are different than the way that we are presented in media. My friend Zohbi talked about numbers. Unfortunately, that's true. We are presented as numbers. We're not presented as humans. Most of the time when you hear about Palestinians, they will tell you 6 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, or 10 Palestinians were killed in Rafah, but they don't say their names. They don't show their pictures. So people forget, we just hear numbers. No, we Palestinians are humans. We deserve to live just like everyone on this globe. And we will have our freedom. Okay? This is the hope that we have. We have hope. Sometimes I don't know where I get hope from, because it comes from my faith, from my Lord. Okay? But we have hope. We want to live. And I tell you what, living in Palestine is living under the shadow of the cross all the time. And there is no room for weak people in Palestine. If you are weak, you leave. There's no way to be weak and live over there. And of course, we need your prayers, and we need your understanding, and we need an action, which is the most important. People always wonder, what can we do? There are lots of things that you can do. And if you don't want to do anything, just at least do not reward the oppressors. Do not reward the oppressors. This is the minimum that you can do. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, and thank you.
Thank you, Rusam. Our final guest to join us this morning on the platform is Grace El-Zougbi. She is a teacher at the Bethlehem Bible College. She was an undergrad student at the college and finished her MA in the Theology of Transformation, Church, Scripture, and World from the London School of Theology in 2010. She joined the staff at Bethlehem Bible College in 2011 and is currently the head of the Biblical Studies Department. So please join me in welcoming Grace.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Or should I say good evening, trying to get over my jet lag? It is great to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for praying for the Palestinian Christians. My name is Grace Zurbi. I am 27 years old. I was born and raised in Bethlehem. I love Bethlehem, and I think it's the most beautiful place on earth. I serve in Bethlehem Bible College and with my local church in Bethlehem, and I love living there every day despite the challenges. It is great to be in the United States of America, and the minute I arrived, I realized the freedom, the vastness, the tranquility, and the peace in this country. There are no checkpoints, there are no barriers, there isn't a war. People live and go and commute wherever they want and however they want. And my mind went back to my people, to Palestine, wounded Palestine, the people who are brokenhearted, who are sad, who are depressed, and who go through so many challenges and difficulties every single day. And it has made me sad. It has made me sad to know that the situation has been this way for so many years. And up till this day, it continues to be the same, if not worse. But there is hope. We have come here to Ohio to say that we have hope. Our hope, first and foremost, lies in God. God, the giver of hope and the giver of every good and perfect gift. Living in a war-torn land and in the midst of intense conflict, I believe that as Christians, we should seek to bring stability to people's lives and hearts. We should care for the sick, the wounded, and the brokenhearted. And not only in Palestine, but in other parts of the world, there is constant turmoil. The forces of darkness, it seems, are in almost every walk of life. But perhaps there should be no surprise that the very place where Jesus, the Lord of Light, was born, should currently be in the midst of such conflict, in the way of opposition to Christian traditions of faith, poverty, high rate of unemployment, and the misuse of faith. However, even as the individual lights of love dwindle, we are reminded by the Apostle John that it only takes one single light to dispel the darkness, for the darkness cannot comprehend it. And this is our responsibility. We have to be shining lights in the darkness. We have to carry the message of hope, faith, and peace. I know that we are one body. If one part is hurting, then surely the other should be as well. If your brothers and sisters in Palestine are hurting, then I know you are hurting too. And if you are rejoicing, we shall rejoice with you. I would like to read a few words that I wrote that talks about the situation in Palestine, especially the refugees. Like we heard, there have been so many people displaced and made refugees, especially after the current events in Gaza. And as I read them, I pray that God will deal with our hearts wherever we need them, wherever we need it. I pray that God will continue to stir us to stand with one another, to pray for one another, and to remind us constantly that we are one body. By the rivers of Babylon, we sat down and wept. When we remembered Zion, there on the willow trees we hung our harps. How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy. Imagine her standing there, face pale, her smile faded, and her heart burdened. Her unhappiness clear for all to see. She was far from home, miles away from where her heart lay. Her spirit was no longer free to sing, dance, or fly. Although her harp hung on the branches of a nearby tree, she couldn't sing. She couldn't even hum a tune. All she could do was sit by the river of Babylon and weep. Her warm tears streaming down to join the flow of the great river as it rolled along. How could one lose everything so quickly, she wondered. No land, no home, no holy city, no temple, no identity, Nothing was the same in Babylon as it was in Jerusalem. Even though she was not alone, family, friends, and relatives all had been exiled with her. Still, she was a stranger, a refugee, a deportee. This was the heartbreaking reality. Days, months, and years passed, and the memories of Jerusalem never left her mind. She waited her dream of returning to her homeland, growing with every day that passed, but she never did. As Psalm 137 so aptly illustrates, a homeland is something that is deeply rooted in heart and mind, something embedded in our being. With the psalmist, we ask, how can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? Indeed, how can we? Can our hearts rejoice in a dry and barren land? As I walk through the narrow streets of Bethlehem today, I can't help but notice the refugee camps all around, the pain and frustration of being within a half-hour's drive from one's former home, but not to be permitted to return, is what the residents of the Bethlehem-based refugee camps live with daily. Over 6 decades have passed, and the reality has not changed. From tents to small houses, which then became crowded onto other small houses as the population expanded, the refugees still endure in the little town of Bethlehem. And even after several generations, they are all still longing to be back in their villages across the horizon. They wonder what has become of them, for no place is like home. In addition to the refugees in Bethlehem and the West Bank, Palestinian refugees in Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria all dream of one day returning to their land that flows with milk and honey. Will they or will they not? A question that no one knows the answer to. But while they dream, our prayer and hope is that the Lord will do great things for them, that in the midst of their distress, they will be given a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Who said that days of bitterness, suffering, longing, and agony have to last? Who said that one cannot hope or dream for a better tomorrow? Who said that the days of exile will never end? Who said that the aggrieved party and descendants will always be aggrieved? Who said that the girl by the river of Babylon will always weep? For weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. If not for these refugees, then surely for their children and grandchildren. In the end, it was the children and grandchildren of the psalmist who were able to report, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were all like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations that the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. The Lord has done great things indeed. The Lord continues to do great things amongst the people. We are his people, the apple of his eye, his flock. In many ways, we are all refugees needing a homeland. Being scattered and homeless is the last place people want to get to. Yet, as important as it is to have a physical home and shelter, how much more important it is to have a spiritual shelter. The refugees in Bethlehem have been displaced from their homes and have found a place to accommodate them. But one feels compelled to pray that the refugees all find God as their shelter in times of need as well as in ordinary times. God is the safest shelter for all his children. With the psalmist, we can say, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give away and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. Amidst life's many instabilities, God Almighty remains our one and only solid rock. Let us lean on him, and whilst we do, let us remember that we long for a better country, a heavenly one, and that he has prepared a city for us. And may I add a few words of lament that I wrote for my Palestinian people, the people that are very dear and precious to my own heart. Hopelessness beckons round every corner. Lurking like a shadow, I can't shake it off. Despair and despondency creep into all parts of life. Each hour that passes, more pain and strife. Enclosed by a wall made of concrete and steel, surrounded by worship of foreign gods, this birthplace of Jesus now swamped by hatred, violence, and conflict. No peace, no calm. Forgotten by the rest of the world. No minds understand the pain and the hurting, the struggle for land. How can I comprehend the promises of God when each bullet and bomb goes against your great love? What can I do but hold onto your love? Deliver us who trust. Hold us firm in the storm. So what breaks the hopelessness? What calms the despair? What takes away the pain? What brings healing and repair? Not the anger of man, nor the pride of a sinner, not the wisdom of kings or international summits. Through decades of anguish, only one thing holds true, the faithfulness and love of you, Yahweh. Take all the evil and smash it as glass. Grind it to nothing, then let your ways be a part of everything that moves, of everything you made. In this, we hold our hope that one day your ways prevail. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. I wanted to give all of you a chance to ask questions. We have about 20 minutes or so for this, but I first have one of my own, and so I'm going to be a little selfish and ask that first. Wissam, I think you have, of the three of these great speakers who've shared with us, you have the young children. And so I was curious to have you share, how do you talk with your children about this? What is their understanding?
Well, I have almost 10 years, Leah, 8 years, Sarah, and 2 years, Daniel. Those are my kids. And so far, I'm not trying to talk to my kids about the occupation, about the wall, and always I try to avoid even traveling with my kids within the West Bank or to Jerusalem, because I don't know what kind of reaction I would have if anything happened to them, or if I get humiliated in front of them, or I don't want them to see soldiers. Now, with the wars, like with the current war in Gaza, with all of these sad scenes, honestly, I don't dare to discuss or to talk to them about it. And they don't talk about it even. I know that they're sad. I know that they see things via Facebook or on TV, like you cannot prevent them from seeing things. But I'm really afraid. I just don't want to have such an encounter with my kids, because I hope that soon they will stop seeing such things and they will have a different future.
All right, thank you. I would like to take questions. Just a few things I'd like to say about that. First, we do have a couple of folks with mics, and this is a hard room to hear in, so if you would really wait until the person with the microphone gets to you, I would appreciate it. And also, so that we can maximize our time, I'm sure many of you have stories and commentary, but I would ask right now that we really reserve this for question time to take advantage of these guests who have traveled so far to be with us. And also, when it is your question, would you please identify your name and where you're from? That would be very helpful as well. All right, so do we have a question on the floor?
Yeah, we have one over here, Karen.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is J.R. Atkins. I'm from Gatesville United Methodist Church, and I began talking to people in my community as I was coming here and said, what do you want to ask? What questions do you have? What are you confused about? And one that came up that I tried to answer, but I would like to hear what you you have to say is, why don't the Palestinians that are peaceful and Christians, the ones you're going to support, help address the negative issues we see on TV? You know, why isn't there something within their culture where they're working together for peace instead of what we've seen on TV?
Zugbi, do you want to take that one first? Here.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Okay, but I'll have to back up. The question is, I was asked why the Christians and peaceful Palestinians don't work with their more radical or combative Palestinians, the ones we see on TV that are fighting with Israel. Because I was trying to make the case that not all Palestinians are the same, just like all Texans don't ride horses to work.
Thank you. It's kind of, you know, those of you who are for peace among the Palestinian people, what do you do to reach out to those who perhaps not as eager for peace within the Palestinian community?
Well, Palestinian, like any other nation, they say between two Israelis there are 3 opinions, between 2 Palestinians there are 5 opinions. And there are people who are struggling, who would like their life to be better using nonviolence. Some others think that Israel was created by military power, why not to resist it in using that? And others who decide to migrate outside. And many would like to manage their own business by working and securing food on the table of the children. So this diversity makes us more like other nations. And as Palestinians who are involved in nonviolent struggle and who would like to deprive the Israeli government from an enemy, we act, we don't preach. You know, and this is very important because at this time, you know, it is not easy when you see the suffering of the people and this misproportion of power used against us to try to preach others. We have trainings in different schools, universities, summer camps. Our response, for example, at WIAM and with your support, we are able to continue with our summer camps for children, and our center is just next to the wall. The wall even takes 1/4 of the land there. Despite of the skunk water, despite of the gas and live ammunition and rubber bullets, the kids determined to continue. So our message is that we should continue our life, we should work with those who believe in other ways, but working together in more resilience, with talks, writings. We write on the papers, we been interviewed, and with other groups we have vigils, nonviolent demonstrations. The Palestinians have practiced 280 ways of nonviolence, as Gene Sharp put it, but also I believe who is without violence will cast the Palestinian with the first stone.
Another question. Elizabeth, yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mark Harrison, United Methodist Church. My question, I mean the Board of Churches Society. My question is to Weissen. I want to see clarification on something you said. You gotta have those who lead are weak. Are you saying that Palestinians who left Palestine, like say, come to the United States or go someplace else, are they weak? I mean, what are you trying to get at there?
It's a very good question. Well, I said what I wanted to say, that you really have to take a lot to stay there. And you know, it's, I mean, like many times I would discuss with my wife what our future gonna look like. Okay, shall we stay? Shall we go? And of course, you have to have the courage, more courage to stay. But I think maybe you could be more, like you could be wiser if you leave. And I think, yeah, I think you could be wiser if you leave, because sometimes it's very challenging and it's a very hard decision even to decide to stay in certain areas or certain time.
Thank you. Another question. I see some over here. Mika, where are you? Okay, go ahead. And then we'll want to move this direction on the next one, please.
John Paris from the Institute on Religion and Democracy. And I heard, I believe it was Wissam, lamenting some of the portrayals of Palestinians in the media. And I would just like to ask if any of you would like to lift up any portrayals of Israelis in Palestinian media that you think are worthy of highlighting as something that we should criticize, or that maybe any of you have criticized within the Palestinian media. Thank you.
It was a little bit muffled. Could you restate that? It was a little difficult to pick up. You were talking about portrayals of something in the media.
Are there any portrayals of Israelis in the Palestinian media that any of you would criticize portrayals of Israelis in Palestinian media?
For newspapers, Palestinian newspapers, radios, television, are there any portrayals of Israelis that they do that you would think would be inaccurate? Maybe sort of the flip side of what Wissam was talking about. Anyone want to take that?
About the media and Palestinian side who...
Right, how are they portraying Israelis, and would you agree with that assessment?
I believe that the media and the Palestinian side is getting different ways to express what is happening in the Israeli society. One of them takes a lot of what is said in the Israeli media and translate it on the spot. And it is very accurate, I would say. And especially with what has been happening in Gaza lately. Also, there are many articles written by Israelis, published in the Arab newspapers and interviews in the Arab magazines. And of course, there are highlights of the Israelis like new historians, Ellen Pape and other Jewish writers, Norman Finkelstein and other folks who write. I would say I am happy with this, especially to not demonize the Israelis. I believe the Palestinian media are not demonizing the Israelis, and they are separating between Jews and the occupation. And of course, you know, there is no free press there, because most of our newspapers are printed and published in Jerusalem. The Israeli control is there. And many times, of course, TVs and others are screened. There is censorship, strong censorship. I hope that I answered your question.
All right, let's have, do we have a woman? There we go, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Jay White from the North Carolina Conference. I'm wondering if any of you have any personal relationships with Jewish people or Israeli people, and if so, is there any barrier to communication with them? Are you allowed to have personal contact?
I can answer that as well.
Sure, okay. Well, first of all, it's difficult to have communication or any sort of relationships with Israelis because we are not allowed into Israel that often. As Palestinians, we are given permission to get to Jerusalem twice a year at Christmas and Easter. So that makes relationships or any sort of communications very difficult. But for example, the evangelical churches have some connections with Messianic Jews in Israel. They meet at least once a year, for example, in an Easter service at the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem. They meet together, they pray together, they fellowship together and worship the same God. Other than that, I can't think of any direct examples. There might be an organization or two that tries to bring Palestinian Christians and Messianic Jews together in meetings or conferences, encounters. Yeah, but
And you're probably in Jerusalem more because of your tour guide status. I mean, do you have a comment on that as well?
Well, I always had Jewish friends, and I still have lots of Jewish friends. They are friends and colleagues. And I remember even before the wall was built, lots of Jewish friends used to come and visit with us in Bethlehem. You know, I want to address the conflict as a political conflict. This has nothing to do with religion. And there are more, even, I know lots of Jewish activists who work hard for peace and justice in Palestine. And sometimes I even admire, I mean, I wish that we have like them also in Palestine, because they are courageous and they do a lot of great work. So, I mean, yeah, of course.
Great. Another question over here, Mika.
Upper New York Annual Conference. Presently, we're looking at divesting from investments in companies that are profiting from the occupation. Is this an effective means of a nonviolent protest, and are there others that we could take another step towards?
Thank you. I believe the call of Kairos from Palestinian Christians to BDS is a type of call which incarnates the nonviolent protest. And, BDS is very important, especially now, after what we have seen happening. And it is very important nonviolent one, which will speed up any political settlement. Because as a person who is grassroots, I used to believe, and still, from bottom to top approach, but also we need top-bottom approach. And through the BDS, we're asking the world community to assume their collective responsibility to bring Israel to its senses and not needs. So I was in a tour with Amos Gaviritz, who is an Israeli peace activist. And when we talk about BDS, and there were American Jews who were against it, and he said, wait a minute, BDS is good for us also, because it saves the lives of Palestinians and Israelis. It is better than, and this is my words, calling to have another uprising, where people, or to have a war or jihad. So it's very important. And we saw BDS has worked to end the South African apartheid regime, and also in other places. And again, when we talk about BDS, and this is also Amos' friend remind me, that BDS will stop after recognizing the Palestinian rights to self-determination and statehood.
Another question, Elizabeth? Yes.
I'm Darrell Mitchell from the Iowa Conference of the United Methodist Church. I'm a retired pastor. I'm wondering about international law and academic freedom. What has been done in Israel in encouraging through the universities there with students being taught to go into the West Bank and be a part of settlement building. Did they get encouragement through
Does anyone feel, could you address that, Grace, or? I think if you would shorten the question just a little bit and kind of get at the heart of it. Your concern is academic freedom.
Well, it's sort of a general question. I'm not sure how I can shorten that, but I'm hearing about our universities here in America.
Okay.
Participating and encouraging them to do more and more.
Oh, so you're talking about in the U.S., should our own universities, should we work with them more to have them focus on divestment? Okay, I'm with you. I'm sorry about that. So, all right. So the question is, do you think it would be helpful to have universities within the United States, to practice divestment as well? All right. Would you share your mic there with him, Wisam? That'd be great.
Definitely. Anything would be helpful, really. Like, it's a great encouragement for us to know that people are interested, that they want to invest, and that they care all the more about what's going on in Palestine. So anything like this initiative would be greatly appreciated.
All right, good. Do we have another question lined up? Yes, in the back there.
Hi, my name is Brian Brown. I serve here in the Cincinnati area as a superintendent. As I listen, it's obvious to me in many ways that what's going on in this discussion is the manifestation of a deeper illness. A deeper illness not just faced by Palestinians and Israelis, but a human illness, and that is the separatist instinct or the separatist challenge that we all face. And my God being bigger than your God, my needs being bigger than your needs, and it's not just limited to that area of the world. And so as I think about that, what would it look like if we use this as an opportunity to call the world to a sense of repentance, to call all of us to that place where this separatist instinct takes over? I'm separate from my daughter or my wife or my spouse or my neighbor. We see this all around the world. What would it look like if we showed solidarity to the deeper illness that we all struggle with? And that's the whole idea of coming together in a raised consciousness of this God that we all have within. So my question to you, to shorten that up here and repeat, what would it look like to give encouragement? What would the wording look like? And what would the timing look like? And you might want to give that some thought. To start a day when we would recognize and reach out to humanity and say, I'm offering repentance of my separatist nature. This is what I'm going to do. Maybe one last glass of water that we take for granted. To recognize my part when you talk about the Christian pain there in Palestine being part of our pain as well. And so it is. But the human pain is part of this deal as well. So what would that look like if we embraced it and embraced our part in it? Because it manifests all over the world, and this is an opportunity to recognize that.
Actually, I think you got the start of a great sermon there, Brian, so that was really good. But you're absolutely right. When are we going to start in the world defining ourselves more by what unites us and our common sisterhood and brotherhood than by what separates us and putting up the walls? I don't know if any of you have any philosophical comment on that or something to add to what Brian has said. Right, how do we encourage people to stop separating ourselves from one another and instead seeing our more common humanity? He's saying it's a bigger issue than just the separation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's a global pandemic, perhaps. Any other comments on that?
Yes, as also here, we believe that we are belonging to one global village. It's very important, especially with this modern technology. I think we need to put an end to the suffering of the people. This will bring all people together. And to put also an end for the greed that really dominates the world in national corporations and to see the wars here and there. I believe we need a new way of thinking, creative way of thinking, to move forward away from the stereotypes and overgeneralization. You know, once there was a prefix for Palestinians, either we are terrorists, fundamentalists, or extremists. It is the time to see the human face on the Palestinian. As well, we are not against Jews. We are against the system. One important thing is here to separate the problems from the persons and the system. The system is evil, but the people are all the same. And many times I look at this conflict with Israel, the occupation. We are the dysfunctional family of Abraham. Whether we like it or not, all of us are children of Abraham. So we need to work with the new ways, to have a new infrastructure in our approaches.
Alex, did you have something you wanted to add to that? If you come and I'll just share this mic with you, and then we'll go back to a couple more questions before we wrap up. Alex Awad is one of our speakers a little bit later on in the conference, but he wanted to add to that comment, I believe.
Well, I will end where I will start where Zurbi ended, where he said we are all the children of Abraham. You know, the biblical record is so clear that God's heart is big enough to encompass all of us, Israelis, Palestinians, call them Jews, call them Arabs, call them Muslims, call them Christians, call them Democrats, call them Republicans. You know, the heart of God is big enough to include all of us. And, you know, there is a small story about Isaac and Ishmael in the Bible. And it's amazing, that story where it says that God was for Isaac, and he took Isaac and wanted to make him the son of the promise. Then the same story says, and God was with Ishmael, and God loves the lad. The lad means Ishmael. So, yeah, we believe God is not taking side in this conflict. He is on both sides, except God is on the side of justice. And this is where we, as United Methodists, want to be on the side of God, who is on the side of justice.
Thank you. All right. All right, we'll go ahead.
Okay. What is the one single most thing that you would like for us as individuals and congregations to do?
These all represent different churches here in the U.S. If you could ask each of these churches to do one thing, what would it be? And we'll have each of you respond to that. And we'll kind of use this as the conclusion question.
You know, St. Jerome talks about 5 Gospels, 4 in the New Testament, and the 5th when you visit the land and meet the people. Come and witness, see, and act.
Go ahead, Wiesem, could you respond as well?
I would say that before people get involved in anything, they should pray, they should learn, they should find the truth. Because sometimes getting involved in something, could be blindly supporting something that you don't want to support.
I believe just the fact that you all are here, you're doing so much, and I would continue to encourage all of you to care and encourage and support the Palestinian Christians, whether you're in the States or whether you come and visit us and live with us and walk with us. We are all supposed to be ambassadors of Christ wherever we are. So the more we know, the more we learn, the more we can be successful in this mission. And of course, we should not forget to pray, because prayer changes everything.
To continue what you are doing in different ways. And I believe the Methodist Church has been a good example of partnership, where commitment for the issues of justice. You heard the call of the Palestinians for BDS, and it is very important to remind each other with it. What we are asking is just a way of nonviolent struggle, nonviolent solidarity with the oppressed, and we appreciate what you have been doing in that field.
That was a terrific question. We will, as we wrap up the conference tomorrow, be giving everyone the opportunity to sort of covenant as to what their next thing and what their next step is. So, and as a pastor friend of mine used to say all of the time, and still does, prayer is the great starting point. It really is. You know, prayer is not the least we can do, it's the most we can do. So it seems to me that it all begins there. So anyway, would you please join me in thanking our guests one more time?